Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you on Friday, December 1st. We have officially bid adieu to November 2017. We're in the final month of this year as we head toward Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, Kwanzaa, so on and so forth. Very excited about being here with you this morning, and we did start an hour behind. Our typical schedule is Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today we had to start a little bit back with a schedule change, so we're here at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with you here. Thank you for those of you that ad-libbed with us and made sure that you were here to listen in this morning. Greatly appreciate it and cannot thank you enough for your part in the broadcast. Here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on the live feed mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast today. First and foremost on the show, we will start off with Fantasy Football Friday, which is here on December 1st, but every week from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, every Friday, Fantasy Football Friday graces the stage of the airwaves here on Wake Up Call with Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, and of course myself from WakeUpCallDT.com here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Mike, how you doing today?
Awesome. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and Mike, the first thing that we have to discuss here in Week 13 of the NFL is what the heck happened with the Washington Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Dallas had beaten Washington earlier in the season 33-19, and they had the tiebreaker over them. Both teams came into the game with a 5-6 overall record, and it looked like the Redskins had an opportunity to pounce on the Cowboys, who are sans Sean Lee, sans Tyron Smith, Zach Martin obviously hurt, so two offensive linemen, your quarterback of your defense in Sean Lee, and Ezekiel Elliott. It seemed like the perfect opportunity for Washington to finally pass Dallas in the NFC East and still have a shot toward the wild card. However, the Cowboys at home took care of business, scored 38 points. It's their first win without Ezekiel Elliott. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, Dallas did what they had to do. Other playmakers who needed to play made plays. That's what big-time programs do, whether you're in a college program or the NFL. I mean, you look at Switzer with the 83-yard punt return. I mean, well, actually, rewind that. Go back to the way the game really started. And the game really didn't start till the second quarter. But, you know, you look at the Jason Witten touchdown, then it was a Cousins fumble, then that led to a Dan Bailey field goal, then, Ryan Switzer returns the 83-yard punt return, and then within 7 minutes, all of a sudden Dallas is up 17-0, and that's just hard. The Redskins aren't really built to come back from a large deficit. They rely on some ground control, and then they throw some good passes, some well-timed plays, and then Samaje Perine, goes out of the game with some potential concussion symptoms, and it just steamrolled on him and got away from him, and they tried to call back, but it was just too much too late.
Yeah, and it's crazy how this game went, because the expectation of the game, the way that things have been going for the Cowboys, was that the Cowboys were going to falter, have some missteps here, but they were able to come back. And I have to play this from David Bowie because you just said ground control, so I have to do this.
Ground control to Major Tom.
I had to do that. I had to get some David Bowie on the show today. Ground control to Major Tom. But, yeah, I mean, this game with the Washington Redskins, I mean, obviously they've dealt with injuries here and there throughout the season, losing Samaje Perine, where he's finally started to look like he was getting some things done in the backfield the last couple weeks. That's tough. Rod Smith, who I thought would eventually become the guy that they would trust to give the ball to, young running back that they have, he was able to score a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Cowboys scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and 2 touchdowns and a field goal in the second quarter. It literally was half a game for both. Nobody scored in the first, nobody scored in the third. They just scored to finish out the first half and finish out the second half. Ryan Grant and Josh Doxson, fantasy-wise, have come on as of late. Ryan Grant more so than dachshund. But Switzer, I covered the kid when he was in North Carolina as a receiver and a return man. So I want to shout him out with what he did in this game with the 83-yard punt return. Very difficult to have a punt return for a touchdown. Very few people do it from season to season, and Ryan Switzer could put his name on the list as being one of the guys that got it done, which was really, really cool and awesome for him, as he is a rookie out of North Carolina, drafted in the 4th round, 133rd overall this season. Cowboy-wise, I mean, obviously, Mike, any notes as far as fantasy goes, I would venture to say that, in this game, it's hard to pull back from Dez Bryant ever. He's not getting a ton of yards, but he was able to get a touchdown. Witten was able to score as well. Alfred Morris and Rod Smith got touchdowns. Moving forward, I would still venture to say that Smith and Morris are tough to really lean on and tell somebody definitively to play them moving forward. But Dez Bryant's kind of the guy that you never want to leave off.
Yeah, I'm always going to play a Dez Bryant, unless I have, some sort of other blessing in my wide receiver crew. But, I don't think Morris was too bad last night. 27 rushes, 127 yards and a touchdown. He seemed to be there when they needed him to be there, which is, in the NFL, you have to run the ball. If you can't run the ball in the NFL, you're not going to be able to pass the ball, because one thing helps the other. So in the NFL, you have to be able to run the ball, and I think Dallas was able to run the ball a little bit behind that good offensive line. It just, you can see they missed Ezekiel Elliott. You really can if you look at the games closely and you look at the past several games. But at the same time, Dallas did what they needed to do collectively as a team. Special teams, defense was getting it done. They were getting the turnovers. And then when they were called on to produce, when the big-name players, Bryant, Witten, Morris, when they were asked to produce, they were able to produce. And that took the burden off Dak Prescott, who was pedestrian at best, 11 to 22 for 100 yards, basically. So, the team kind of did this as a team. And that was the most promising thing if you're a Dallas fan.
Yeah, and Dallas obviously was able to, keep their slim playoff hopes alive right now in winning this game, which comes up big for them moving forward. And like you said, you know that this team has looked different. Dak Prescott, 11 of 22. He did have 2 touchdowns and no picks, which is better than what he's done in recent weeks, where he's thrown 5 interceptions over 2 weeks. So he has looked a little bit better. It says a lot about Washington's defense, because Dallas has been terrible since they lost Ezekiel Elliott and not having Sean Lee and not having Tyron Smith and Zach Martin's injury. So to look at all of that coupled together, I mean, to see what Dallas did in this game to score 38 points, I think this is kind of one of those games where you say Washington didn't have a good night and Dallas caught on and was able to get some things done. I don't know if this is the resurgence of the Cowboys. I would temper a lot of people's expectations of saying that, oh my God, the Cowboys are back. Now they're in 9th place. They're 6-6. They're behind Detroit, Seattle, and Atlanta. So they have some work to make up here if they want to get in. And Philadelphia, Minnesota, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Carolina, they're all playing well. Who would have thunk that Carolina, New Orleans, and LA would all be 8-3 right now? Minnesota 9-2 without Dalvin Cook and Sam Bradford, and the Eagles' best team in the NFL of 32 teams at 10-1. The only game they lost was to Kansas City, back when Kansas City used to be good. So, with that being said, we're jumping into the fantasy life, and we're starting the first game off with Minnesota at Atlanta. What do you have for this one? With 2 teams, one in the playoffs right now, if they started today, and Atlanta vying for that final spot.
Well, this is a game where you're going to feature some receivers. I'm looking forward to seeing Julio Jones appears to be back now after a big game. And, Adam Thielen is just climbing up the fantasy charts week in, week out. He's getting it done. So those are a couple guys that are wide receiver ones. Stephon Diggs, you can't forget about him. He's going to be a wide receiver too. Running back-wise, Devonta Freeman, I'm a bit hesitant against the Minnesota run defense, and I'm also a bit hesitant coming back after the concussion. But, if you're looking for an RB2, a low-end RB2, Devonta Freeman, knocked down a couple pegs this week. He's still going to share some of his touches, of course, with Tevin Coleman. And Jerick McKinnon, an RB3, maybe a flex for you. It's kind of weird how they're kind of divvying up those touches. Looks like Latavius Murray is ranked a little higher on my chart this week than McKinnon. And it seems to be McKinnon's going to get most of the touches. It's quarterback one against a tough Minnesota defense. And Case Keenum, a quarterback two. Atlanta is able to defend. Atlanta is able to pressure the quarterback at times. So that's going to be interesting. And, of course, Kyle Rudolph, number 7 tight end overall this week. So it should be an interesting game for some receiver play.
Yeah, this game looks like it's going to be one of those games that, you want to say that you think you know what's going to happen and you think you know how everything's going to go down, but Minnesota has proven people wrong all throughout this year. I don't think there's anybody outside of maybe Minnesota that could sit here and say, yeah, I knew Minnesota was going to be this good. I knew they were going to be on a 7-game winning streak and that they were only going to lose 2 games and that they'd be playing at the Falcons right now with an opportunity to have 10 wins on the season. Very few people have probably said that. Case Keenum is a high-end quarterback, too, for me. Latavius Murray, he does seem to be getting more of the action. He's getting more of the yardage. He's getting in the end zone. So Latavius is a guy that I lean on. Now, Jerick McKinnon's hard to say no to, but he can be very quiet. He only had 1.8 yards a carry on 13 carries last week, 23 yards. So Jerick McKinnon is a high-end running back 4, in my opinion, right now. I would put him kind of in a flex position, but Latavius, a low-end 2, high-end 3, just because of consistency. Adam Thielen, I still think is your best bet at receiver. Stephon Diggs behind that. Kyle Rudolph obviously gets involved, and he's getting more involved once again, which is good to see. As far as any injuries to be of concern in this game, there's really nothing for Minnesota. To look on Atlanta's side, injury-wise, Matt Bryant, their place kicker, he didn't practice Wednesday with a back injury. Julio Jones is questionable with an ankle injury. Teron Ward is questionable as well at the running back position. But, on the side of the Atlanta Falcons for this game, the real big, the key ones are if Julio Jones plays. Now, Julio Jones every year gets injured, and it's a matter of time before it catches up with him typically. I hope that that's not the case for him this season. He's coming off a game with 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. I obviously like Julio in the game. I like Tevin Coleman. If Julio is not at 100%, Mohamed Sanu and Austin Hooper are a wide receiver 3 and a tight end 3. For me, Hooper could be a low-end 2 if Julio Jones is hampered by the injury. So just watch out for those 2 guys. They may be out there for you in free agency. But Tevin Coleman and Julio Jones look to be the guys. Matt Ryan, his numbers haven't been great this year. Keenum's numbers are actually a little bit better recently. So that's why I kind of don't say too much about Matt Ryan in this game. Not that he's a terrible play, but he's a low-end 1 and Case is a high-end 2 just because of, body of work. But Case can get you those 2 touchdowns, and he does stay away from interceptions. So just to kind of mark that one on your calendar if you need some help. New England at Buffalo, what do you have for this one?
Well, you got some of the top players, in some players from New England. Of course, we're talking about Tom Brady and Gronkowski. Typically, week in, week out, they're the number 1 option at quarterback and tight end. You don't have to be told that if you're lucky enough to have these guys on your team. You know what's going on, and if you're facing against them, you just got to hope to have an off game. But, quarterback-wise, Tyrod Taylor, the surprise, I got him, as a high-end quarterback, too, number 13 overall quarterback this week. If you're looking for running back, Deion Lewis is the most productive guy on the side of New England, especially in a PPR situation. He's going to get the touches and the passes. But watch out for Rex Burkhead. He's been on the come up lately. He's a low-end running back 2 flex play for you. But the thing I'm most impressed with is LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy, this whole game is going to rest on him. If New England can stop LaShawn McCoy, they're going to win the game because, it looks like Buffalo's somewhat one-dimensional. But Buffalo's been able to turn it on as of late with some passing, thanks to Charles Clay coming back, and Zay Jones has showed up. So that'll be interesting. But you got to not overlook Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, second only to Antonio Brown on my ranking this week. He's just a big play guy. He can break away. He can stretch the field. He can take a pass over the middle and make it a long play. So this is a guy that hopefully you have on your fantasy team. He's number 2 wide receiver this week on my rankings.
Yeah, for New England at Buffalo, and I agree with Mike on this one. It goes through LaShawn McCoy. Tyrod Taylor and the relationship that he has with Buffalo, or lack thereof, is evident. It was evident at the end of last season it's even more evident now. I'm surprised that they didn't try to move him based on just, my gut coming out of last year and how things felt. But he is where he is right now, and Buffalo, your best bet is LaShawn McCoy. Injury-wise, Jordan Matthews, knee injury, questionable. Nick O'Leary, backup tight end, back injury, questionable. Calvin Benjamin's doubtful in the game. He hasn't done much of anything. Clay is a limited participant in Wednesday's practice this week. He is questionable in his return, so just watch out on that one and see where he's at as the week moves on. You can get the injury report by going to wakeupcalldt.com and under the Fantasy Football tab, clicking on NFL Injury Report. That fantasy report is proudly presented by 315 Chiropractic and Wellness and Dr. Tim Whiting. Tom Brady, Achilles, was limited on his side for New England. He's questionable. Chris Hogan is doubtful for this game. Amendola is questionable. Matthew Slater is questionable. Martellus Bennett is on injury reserve. So he came back to the Patriots from the Packers just to fill up a roster spot and get money and not be able to give anything to the team. He hasn't played since he's been back. So really nothing to say about him. Now the situation with him was kind of interesting though, in that allegedly he flipped his lid when Aaron Rodgers went down and just stopped wanting to perform and play because he wanted to be on a Super Bowl team, and without Aaron Rodgers, he didn't care, and that's the alleged story, and now he's back on a team where he's hoping to win a Super Bowl. He's not going to play a game. For Buffalo, besides LaShawn McCoy, if Charles Clay is good to go, look to him. Zay Jones is a high-end wide receiver 3. For New England, Tom Brady, obviously, if he's healthy enough to go. Deion Lewis and Rex Burkhead seem to be the go-tos. Brandon Cooks is finally turning on, and Rob Gronkowski, not a bad play either. Rex Burkhead went to town. He had 2 touchdowns, one catching, one receiving last year. One catching, one rushing this past week. My mind is all over the place this morning. It's been a long week, folks, but Rex Burkhead looks to help you out in fantasy to not make it a long weekend. San Francisco at Chicago, the battle of 2 terrible teams. What do you have about this one?
This is a rough one. If you like running backs, this is a game, but not so much everywhere else. I mean, Carlos Hyde, number 10 overall running back this week, and, not too far away from him. At number 9, I got Jordan Howard. So 2 low-end RB1s, but, I hope you don't have a bad quarterback situation like either one of these quarterbacks or receivers, or the tight end situation's a mess on both sides. But the play of this game is, and I play in a lot of leagues where I stream the defense, where every week I'm picking up the hot defense playing the matchup, and it seems to work. And if you're in that situation where you're streaming a defense, or your defense is mediocre at best right now, you may consider picking up the Chicago defense, especially if you're playoff bound, because this is a good matchup for the Chicago defense against Garoppolo, against San Francisco. I know Garoppolo looked great for that 2-minute drill he did at the end of the game last week, but the Chicago defense is able to capitalize on mistakes, and they're in a position where they can really capitalize in this game at home. And let me tell you why you want to pick up the Chicago defense, not only for this week, but if you're slated to make the playoffs in Week 16, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I think Chicago plays Cleveland. And Chicago, you're looking ahead to matchups. Remember what I always say at my website, if you're not 2 weeks ahead, you're a week behind. So, with that in mind, you're going to get a good matchup with the Chicago defense this week, and then hopefully for your championship, you'll have a good defense as well.
Yeah, this game between San Francisco and Chicago, Mike brings up a point about Cleveland down the road when you look at Super Bowl time and getting around that time and in it deep into your playoffs when looking at who Chicago is going to be playing. The enigma of this year has been Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. They combined for negative 5 yards this past week on 9 carries. So that was fun. And then this, that's the crazy thing about it. Now, Philadelphia is really good. They played Philly in Philly. They won 31-3. Philadelphia, everything is clicking with Philly right now. But Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, when you say don't play them, they might do well. When you want to play them, they might piss you off. So both of them are flex players for me right now. Running back 3s, so to speak. Not 1, not 2. They're your 3s. On the other side of it, Carlos Hyde, really the only guy that I would look to play. It's a running back war in this one in Soldier Field, and I'm really not looking for a ton out of either side. And Kevin White is not going to be taken off of injury reserve, for those of you that were wondering that, which I'm hoping that you don't have to wonder that. I'm hoping that that's not a concern on your team right now. We're going to take a quick step aside for the Bay against the Bay. Tampa Bay, Green Bay, they'll be facing off after we come back from this fast break.
This is a wake-up call, fast break.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Just heard from some great partners in Central and Upstate New York that I'm proud to work with on my team. That's Carvel DeWitt, Dreisig Lady, DREISSIG Lady.com, LJ Papaleo of Gilbo Realty, and you can give him a call. Make sure that you give him a call, too, because for those of you that are looking for a house, thinking about putting the house up on the market, you know, whatever it may be. Maybe you want to move south at this time. Maybe you've just gotten to a point where you need to expand a little bit. I know that there's a couple coaches in the area that just need more space in their house, so they're looking for a home. Well, LJ Papaleo is the person to call, 315-748-2524. That is 315-748-2524. So make sure that you give him a call and let him help you out. And obviously, he's allegedly helped out the guy from Home Alone, as you just heard a moment ago. And the Market Diner, big shout out to them. In the morning menu, proudly presented by the Market Diner, right here we're in Fantasy Football Friday, Week 13, with Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, myself, Dan Tortora of WakeUpCallDT.com, and the Market Diner proudly bringing you the Dan Tortora special daily. Make sure you go out and get that. One of the top sellers that they have on premises at the Market Diner exclusively, and it was just voted top 5 sandwich in Central New York. So big ups to that. Mike and I are here to discuss the Bays in the next game up, and that is Tampa Bay at Green Bay. Thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game in a couple different lines here, fantasy-wise. Jameis Winston coming back after the injury here. I got to see something first, so I've got him downgraded to number 17 quarterback this week. And then Brett Hundley on the other side, because Tampa's pass defense has been so weak, I got him just a notch under Jameis at number 18 this week. You know, he's found a nice connection to Devontae Adams. I think you can count on him as a number 10 wide receiver this week. And then, of course, on the other side of the ball, Mike Evans, he's always the man for Tampa Bay, no matter who's the quarterback. Mike Evans, the number 8 wide receiver this week. You know, Jamal Williams has been doing an okay job running the ball. He's their guy. There's not really anybody else back in the mix. Doesn't look like Ty Montgomery's going to be back. Doesn't look like Aaron Jones is going to be back. Looks like he is going to be the bell cow. So I got him as the number 11 running back this week because I think that Green Bay is going to be able to move the ball against Tampa Bay, especially when you consider it's going to be a home game. Should be a little bit of a chill in the air. Now, at the tight end position, this is where it's a little bit interesting to me for Tampa because O.J. Howard has been on the tick up and Cameron Brate on the way down, but now Jameis is back, no more Ryan Fitzpatrick, so I think we may see a resurgence of Cameron Brate, but I'm not sure you can rely on either one of those guys. And on Tampa's side of the ball running, the running back situation's in flux because, well, it looks like Doug Martin may not make the game this week due to the injury, and now it looks like Jacquizz Rodgers is going to get a lion's share of carries. Peyton Barber did get, a couple touchdowns last week, got the goal line touches, and it looks like it's going to depend on Jacquizz Rodgers between the 20s.
Yeah, this game is definitely going to cause some open opportunities for some of these fantasy guys that you may be able to go out and snag up. Jacquizz Rodgers is one of them. Peyton Barber is the other. They're both running back threes for me this week because of the fact that Doug Martin was a non-participant coming out of his concussion protocol, and obviously hoping that he gets better. Injury-wise, Ty Montgomery's doubtful for the game. Aaron Jones is questionable, limited participant with a knee injury. Those are your two running backs on Green Bay that aren't named Jamal Williams. And on the other side of it, for Tampa, Deshaun Jackson's questionable with a foot injury. Brate is on the injury report due to a hip issue. He was listed as limited in practice this week. And then Doug Martin, concussion, like I said, non-participant. So that's something to look out for. My thoughts on this one as far as who to play, I like Mike Evans in the game. O.J. Howard, and I agree, O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate, you don't really know where to lean with either one of these guys. They're both low-end twos because they're not bad to have, but they may not get you much. They may get you 6 yards and a touchdown, they may get you 50 yards and no touchdowns, or they might be relatively insignificant. Now, the thing is, it's good to have both, but it's bad to take up two spots with them. So you got to make a choice. O.J. Howard's been trending up, but every quarterback has their receivers. Cameron Brate, more Jameis Winston. O.J. Howard, more Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I would lean on Brate, but you have to watch the injury report for him. And like I said, either one of these guys is not my first option at tight end. Mike Evans, like I said, yeah, he's worth a play. Jacquizz Rodgers and Peyton Barber, if you got to throw another running back out there, a third or a fourth, not bad options, either one of them in this matchup. Jamal Williams is a good one, and Devontae Adams, I told you don't give up on the man, so put him out there. Randall Cobb as a high-end wide receiver 3. Devontae is still a guy I'd put out in my 1 or my 2, and Jamal Williams is a nice backup running back for you this week. Next up in the matchup is Houston at Tennessee. Thoughts on the new Houston franchise versus the old Houston franchise?
Yeah, well, in this game, you got like Marcus Mariota. He's a low-end quarterback, one versus Houston's defense. I think they still miss J.J. Watt. They've been able to pressure the quarterback with Clowney and company still, but, there's some unanswered questions on both sides of the ball defensively, in my opinion. I'm looking at the quarterback situation on the other side of the ball. Tom Savage, that's just a brutal situation. I feel bad for Houston fans, but that's what you have. You have Tom Savage. He's the bottom-rated quarterback on my rankings this week. Lamar Miller had a great game last week. He's the number 15 running back this week. And, I like DeMarco Murray, but he's been getting cannibalized by Derrick Henry, and it looks like Derrick Henry's a stronger runner. He just can't overtake DeMarco Murray. So DeMarco Murray, number 21 running back this week. Derrick Henry, the number 32 running back this week. And, for receivers, I got to go with DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to be behind. They're going to be throwing the ball, and he's your number one guy. And even though he has a bad quarterback situation, he's going to get his. He's going to get his targets. Therefore, he's going to get his catches. Therefore, he's going to get his yards and maybe even a touchdown. And for receiving on Tennessee's side, you really only can lean on the tight end, Delanie Walker. He seems to always show up. Looks like he's going to be hurting out of the game. Then he bounces back and makes a big play. So this is a guy who's the number 4 tight end this week.
Yeah, looking at this matchup between the two Houston Texans against the old Houston Oilers, the Tennessee Titans, DeAndre Hopkins is the only one I feel good about on Houston's side of things. Will Fuller, the 5th, is not doubtful this game with his rib injury. He's actually questionable in the game, so just watch out for that because some people might have dropped him, and he was playing very well when he was playing. So just keep your eye on that if you need to dig deep this week, and if you're setting up, like Mike and I talk about, for the future, and like Mike always says, to be a couple steps ahead. So DeAndre Hopkins, not a bad play. Watch Will Fuller. On the other side of it for Tennessee, DeMarco Murray and Rashard Matthews are both on the injury report as questionable. Delanie Walker is the one I feel best about. DeMarco and Derek, they're okay. DeMarco had 9 yards but had a touchdown in the last game. So Derrick Henry, DeMarco are kind of like Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard, but a little bit better. They're flex guys that I kind of feel okay about, but I don't feel good enough about to make them my designated running back 1s or 2s. Delaney Walker, like I said, he's the one that I feel best about in this matchup. Next up is Denver at Miami. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, but for all the wrong reasons. Interesting meaning, well, both teams are going to have suspect quarterback play. You know, you got Jay Cutler coming back. He's out. He's back. He's good. He's bad. I really don't know what you have in Jay Cutler. He's still a bottom-end quarterback. And then, you know, on the other side of the ball here, I'm not sure that the Broncos have it going on at quarterback either. I'm not sure they know of a direction. Looks like now they're back to Trevor Siemian. You know, he didn't get benched because he was lighting it up, and then they've been through, you know, Osweiler and Paxton Lynch. So it looks like they're going to have to rely on Trevor Siemian now. I still think he's the better of the three, but what do I know? Maybe they were just giving those other guys looks because the record is so abysmal at this point. You know, this is going to be a boring game for fans as far as if you're looking for division, if you're looking for wins, if you're looking for great football play. But there is going to be some gems that you're going to be able to find for fantasy. And one of those guys is a low-end guy that we've talked about last year, and now he's back on the radar again, and Devontae Booker seems to be taking over the job from C.J. Anderson, seems to be the better of the two choices right now. So I got Devontae Booker as a high-end running back 3, but look for him to continue to tick up. He may even be available on the waiver wire in some leagues. And you know what? Running the ball on the other side, we talked about the Kenyon Drake and Damian Williams split. Well, now Damian Williams is dinged up, so that launches Kenyon Drake up the charts. He's the number 14 running back this week. And when I'm looking at wide receivers, I can look at Jarvis Landry. I can look at Demaryius Thomas, but I don't know what else to look at there. I don't see the value because of the poor quarterback play. And same thing with the tight end position. I'm having a hard time. I'm hard pressed to trust in anybody else receiving the ball in this game.
Yeah, this game, it looks like it could be, two boring teams playing up against each other until somebody just it's like two teams that are just kind of, it's like watching Mortal Kombat, and you're right at that part where the guy's wavering and it says, finish him. Like, that's exactly what this game feels like to me. Who's going to get finished in this game, Mortal Kombat style? So, as far as injuries go, really nothing outside of Paxton Lynch with Denver. With Miami, Matt Moore's got a lot of injuries going on, apparently. Damian Williams, shoulder injuries going on. Landry's got a knee injury, which has left him questionable. So, my question is, do we call Tom Tupa, the old punter who filled in for the Jets when they lost all their quarterbacks, if Jay Cutler goes out of this game and there's no Matt Moore and Ryan Tannehill's already out for the season? So that is my question to you. Denver, who do I like? Cody Latimer and Benny Fowler III, believe it or not, are not bad flex in my mind. Benny Fowler III is really not a bad choice for me of the two because of the fact that he was good in the beginning of the year when Trevor Siemian was there, and now Trevor Siemian looks to be back, and he's not bad right now and just scored recently with a touchdown. So Benny Fowler's probably out there for you to pick up as a flex. Demaryius Thomas, it's hard to say no to, but it's also hard to say yes to. He has been completely affected by the three-headed quarterback issue. He's not a bad player, but I feel better about the Benny Fowlers and the Cody Latimers of the world than I do about Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders right now. They're playing Miami, though, so Demaryius, a low-end wide receiver, too. He's a guy like Dez, where even if he has a bad week, it's hard to keep him off the field. Kenyon Drake, for me, because Denver's so bad, I don't mind putting Kenyon Drake out there as a third option at running back, and Kenny Stills is my thought over Jarvis Landry if Jarvis is injured right now, and that seems to carry over. Next game up is Kansas City at New York. This looked like it would be a cakewalk for Kansas City at the beginning of the year. Now Kansas City has to win this game to stay in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, and I would, conventional wisdom would dictate that Kansas City is a better team here, but the Jets are playing at home, and the Jets do have a formidable defensive front, and that's real important in the NFL. If you can protect the quarterback and if you can rush the quarterback, you're going to have some success. But, Kansas City hasn't been getting it done. They haven't been connecting. They haven't been making progress. The past few weeks, they've been getting subpar performances based on the start of the year performances from Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill. These are guys that Everybody expected to make big plays and tear it up, and they went out there and did. And now they're suffering because it's not happening. I don't know where to point the finger. I don't know if it's Alex Smith. I got him as the number 12 quarterback this week, which is a downgrade for him. I also have the running back, Kareem Hunt, downgraded to number 12, low-end running back 1 this week because he hasn't been getting it done. And then same thing with Tyreek Hill. He's on the top end of the wide receiver 2s. So, these guys were normally in the top 5 in their respective positions. The only guy from Kansas City that seems to be showing any consistency is Travis Kelce, number 3 overall tight end this week. And for the Jets, looks like Austin Seferian-Jenkins is starting to show up. Looks like they're starting to target him, especially in the red zone. So you definitely want to play him there. He's a tight end, too, number 14 tight end this week. Receiving-wise for the Jets, well, I don't know who they're going to rely on. I guess Robbie Anderson's their only answer. He's a low-end wide receiver 1. And then Matt Forte and Bilal Powell seem to be the guys that are getting it most done. But I can't count on either one of those guys. And Forte's dinged up right now. So most of the value is on Kansas City's side of the ball. And I don't have to tell you if you have Travis Kelce. He's the one must play.
Yeah, this matchup between the two, Kansas City and New York at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, you would think, like Mike said, that Kansas City would take care of this, but who would have thunk that Alex Smith would outrun Kareem Hunt against the Buffalo Bills in a loss? So, Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, hard to keep off your roster, so I still put him out there if you got him, but Travis Kelce is your best bets longevity-wise. They all looked bad in the game against Buffalo. So, and that says something because Buffalo's fighting for the playoffs and Kansas City's fighting to stay in, and they have to fight off the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, the Los Angeles Chargers have a chance of making the playoffs this year because of Kansas City and how they have responded to the strong start that they had. So, Hunt and Hill still worth putting out there. Kelce, your best bet. On the other side of it, Jermaine Kearse is injured, and so is Matt Forte. They're both questionable to play moving forward. Robbie Anderson's been the guy, though. I am so happy that a few weeks back, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said I need somebody. It was right before game time. I said I have little to no choices. I chose Robbie Anderson over, I think, Devin Funchess. It was one of those. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give him a shot. He looks like a guy who's been turning on lately. And he absolutely did turn on. And he had 2 touchdowns most recently. And the man has scored, I think it's all the last 5 weeks he's had at least 1 touchdown. So shout out to Robbie Anderson, who looks like a really good fantasy play above other people that you expect to be better. Before we take our next step aside, Indy and Jacksonville in Everbank Field in Florida. What do you think about this one?
Well, I'll be going to this game, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Jaguars improve play here, although they didn't look too improved last week. Looks like they gave that game away, if you ask me. Blake Bortles has been a little more impressive. He's a high-end quarterback, too. That's been a part of their success. Leonard Fournette, of course, number 3 running back. He's going to be the top guy. As long as he's healthy and on the field, they're going to ground and pound, and that's what they do. On the other side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett probably won't be able to get it done against that tough Jacksonville defense. Both the secondary and their ability to pressure the quarterback is dynamic, making them the number 1 scoring defense in fantasy and in the NFL. And, if you're looking at Frank Gore, he's still going to get the touches. He's still going to get the carries. He's a bottom-end running back, too, this week at number 24. Receiver-wise, Jacksonville's dinged up. The Allens are dinged up. Marquise Lee is dinged up. You may find hidden value if you're desperate for a flex or a deep wide receiver league. If you're looking for a Keenan Cole, if you're looking for a D.D. Westbrook, these guys may surprise you. You may be able to get some sort of value if you're really desperate in a situation due to injury or something. But if you're looking further down the line here, I don't really see value in the tight end position outside of Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle's been trying to get it done, and he seems to get it done every week. That's the one positive connection Brissett seems to have. I got Jack Doyle as the number 11 tight end this week. And, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention T.Y. Hilton, but against that Jacksonville defense, he's no better than a wide receiver 3 this week.
Yeah, Jacksonville's defense has turned on. Remember the last game they played in Indianapolis, they shut out the Colts. So I look at the Jaguars' defense and special teams in this matchup, as well as playing Jaguars. Blake Bortles, quarterback, he's a low-end 1 for me because he's playing Indy this week. Leonard Fournette has an opportunity to get things done after having a quiet week. TJ Yeldon, not a bad flex guy, and Dede Westbrook is somebody. Also, Keelan Cole, because of the fact of Marquise Lee not doing much lately, and he has been hampered by injury. So the Jaguars I feel best about in this matchup are Blake Bortles, Leonard Fournette, and Dede Westbrook. But TJ Yeldon and Keelan Cole, and obviously the Jaguars defense and special teams, all are a look to play. If you have the Jaguars defense and special teams, I shouldn't have to tell you to play them. You should just do it. Frank Gore, he's a high-end running back 3 for me this week. Jack Doyle is a low-end tight end 1 for me this week. And Marlon Mack, he's a nice change of pace guy, and he's been able to do some nice things, but he's a running back 4 for me is kind of what I look at for this week. I think he could do some things because they might be keying in on Frank Gore, but he's playing a really strong defense. So this is probably not the week to play Marlon Mack, but my gut is that he could surprise some people because he may not be keyed in on a lot. So just if you want to grab him and stash him, you want to throw him out there if you have an extra spot, I'm just kind of making a little notification there. We'll take a fast break and be back to wrap up Fantasy Football Friday in just a moment.
This is a wake-up call. Fast break.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you on the broadcast. This segment of the show, Fantasy Football Friday, is proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, your home for fantasy football watching, football all throughout the week, as well as not just the NFL, but college football, college basketball, soccer, hockey, basketball in the NBA, whatever you love, whatever you fancy, tennis. Whatever it is, you can find it at the Wildcat on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And you got to get out there and try their boneless wings with the house sauce, the chicken Caesar wrap, their curly fry. They're like, I don't even know how, they're called Kama fries. I've never seen anything like them. They got awesome flavor. They're great. Get out there. The menu's got more than enough for you to decide from. Wildcat Sports Pub, the home of the Wake Up Call Fantasy Football Challenge. All 4 leagues up here in Central New York. And a big ups to all of them and everything that they have to offer. So thank you so much for all that they do at the Wildcat Sports Pub. Next up on the docket is Detroit at Baltimore. Thoughts on this, Mike, as Detroit tries to stay in the playoff hunt, and crazily, Baltimore does too.
Well, this game is a couple underachievers. Both is 6 and 5, and both teams are underachieving in different areas. And the primary concern in Baltimore is the quarterback play. This is a guy they just wrote a giant check for, Joe Flacco, and he's not getting it done. Quite frankly, he's been abysmal at best. He's the number 29 quarterback this week. You know, when the only guys below you on my ranking are Cutler and Savage and Jacoby Brissett, you're not playing well and you're not worthy of a $100 million contract. But on the other side of the ball, they've been getting some better play. But then Baltimore's defense is pretty tough, too. So you got to kind of temper your expectations with Matt Stafford. He's a quarterback 2 this week. And then running back. You know, you would think that you would get some solid play somewhere on the field from one of these teams, and they just don't seem to be getting it done. Maybe Alex Collins, he's a running back 2 But you look at the other side of the ball, Amir Abdullah doesn't appear to be getting it done. He's the number 30 running back this week on my rankings. And then receiver-wise, both teams are capable of moving the ball and making stuff happen. I think the bright spot for Detroit's been Marvin Jones. He's the number 16 receiver this week. And then if you're looking for value on the other side of the ball and receiver, well, I just don't see it. I don't see anybody on the Baltimore receiving corps worth stepping up, and that's primarily because of the poor play at quarterback from Joe Flacco. Tight end-wise as well, it's a struggle to find somebody that you can count on and put out there for some points. So underachieving players, underachieving teams. There's a bright spot in Alex Collins, though.
Yeah, Alex Collins is somebody that, I've appreciated over time here. He's one of those guys that, I kind of caught it was within the first 4 weeks. He was the only bright spot when Baltimore played the Jaguars in London. And I took a step back and I said, he might end up being the guy because Terrence West and Javoris Allen were supposed to be the guy, and neither one of them has been the guy. And Alex Collins was the only person to do anything of any merit in a 44-7 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that never left my brain. And I said, you know what? This could be a steal, and it has been, because he has been the only bright spot, really, consistently, of Baltimore's offense. I want to go first and foremost to the injury report to give you any noteworthies here. For Baltimore, there's nobody offensively to really be concerned about. As far as Detroit goes, you only have Amir Abdullah. Neck injury has left him questionable. And going into this game with Detroit at Baltimore, Matty Stafford's not a bad play in this one. Marvin Jones Jr. getting back to scoring. Kenny Galladay, I like him too. Outside of that, on the other side with Baltimore, it's Alex Collins. Mike Wallace has tried to turn on a little bit here, but the only guy I really feel good about consistently is Alex Collins. As far as receiving, Mike Wallace has had a very quiet season with some bright spots. Chris Moore's had some bright spots. Danny Woodhead's back. He's had moments here and there, but not a ton of yardage per usual. And Jeremy Maclin has fallen out of favor, it looks like, in the past recent history here for Baltimore. So Alex Collins, to me, is really the only guy to discuss. Cleveland at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers got a perfect opportunity here. As 2 LA teams are in the playoff hunt, the Chargers have a chance to make it, and they're playing an 0-11 Cleveland team.
They seem to be able to get things done when they need to. They seem to be able to step up, and I think this is going to be an all-Charger game. I look for value on the Chargers side of the ball at every position, including Phillip Rivers, the number 5 quarterback this week. On the other side of the ball, Deshaun Kaiser, not so much, the number 26 quarterback. And, he's struggling because, he's Deshaun Kaiser and because it's Cleveland. He does have a couple bright spots there. I'll get to that in a minute, but it should be a game filled with some Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon's been able to turn it on recently. And, on the other side of the ball, Duke Johnson, especially in a PPR league, gives you some value. He's an RB3. And then receiver, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's been a terror. He's been tearing it up. Number 3 wide receiver this week. Now, here's where it gets tricky, and here's where you want to set yourself up for success. If you got some room on your bench, Josh Gordon's coming back, and he's going to start. And people may have fallen asleep on this guy, and people may say, well, I'm going to take the wait-and-see approach, and that would be my approach from the outside looking in. But I've done some research here, and I've been looking at Josh Gordon for quite a few weeks. I've rostered him for quite a few weeks in quite a few leagues. This is a guy who's going to come in and explode on the scene. This is a guy who, if you've been watching his training and so forth, I know it's been 2.5 years since he's really stepped foot in a meaningful game, but I have a lot of faith in what Josh Gordon is able to do. I know he's had his problems and his challenges. Hopefully that's behind him, but it looks like Josh Gordon may be able to surprise some people. Now, only take this risk if you're able to take a risk or if you have to take a risk in rostering him. Don't take a wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 and replace him. But if you've got room on your bench, by all means, stick him on the bench. And that's going to open things up eventually for Corey Coleman as well. Corey Coleman's a lot better than most people wide receiver 2s, but he's not quite a top-level wide receiver 1. So you just got to kind of balance that. And then tight end, there's really not much. Hunter Henry's been inconsistent at best. Looks like he's back on the radar. He's the number 13 tight end this week.
Yeah, it's funny how when you're the Browns and a guy hasn't played for you for 2 years, you want him to go out there and play for you right away. It says where the Browns stand right now as a franchise, but it should be no surprise to anyone because this is where they have stood for a long time. So absolutely, the fact that he's going to start says a lot about where the Browns are at 0-11, that, at this point, they would just go to the bars, local bars in Cleveland, and if a guy looks good, then hey, why not put him out on the team and give him a chance and give him an opportunity? Cleveland in this game, Josh Gordon, if you need a flex, if you want to take a flyer, if you're about rolling the dice the week before your playoffs or the first week of your playoffs, then I guess you roll the dice. Corey Coleman could be helped by this. Either one of them is a flex guy. I feel like I'm saying wide receiver 3 and 4 a lot this week, but that's because a lot of these guys haven't been overperforming or even performing to their caliber, depending on who they are. As far as anybody other than that, I got nothing for you for Cleveland. Los Angeles-wise, this team has been turning on as of late. They're 5-6, and they have an opportunity to go 500. I like Phillip Rivers in the game. I like Melvin Gordon in the game. I like Austin Eckler in the game. I like Keenan Allen in the game, and Hunter Henry in this matchup. Next one up is New York at Oakland. The Giants at the Raiders, and Ben McAdoo in his infinite wisdom is starting Geno Smith against the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, this is going to be a terrible game for fantasy because I don't know who the wide receivers are. Amari Cooper's in a concussion protocol, Crabtree suspended. You know about all the injuries at wide receiver for the Giants, so there's not a lot of value there. But if you're looking for value, and if you're looking for a guy to fill out a DFS squad, or if you're desperate at wide receiver or have a deep league, maybe Roger Lewis isn't a bad pickup. Maybe there's a couple guys you can find some value here. Maybe a Cordarrelle Patterson is going to step up this week. Maybe Sterling Shepard is going to be able to get it done and get back on the field. So there might be some value here in receiver for those guys. But the number 1 receiver is actually a tight end, and that's Evan Ingram, the number 6 tight end this week. Clicking back over to running back, you can count on Marshawn Lynch to be a running back too, but not so much by anybody on the Giants. I don't have any faith in any of the Giants running backs, and I don't have faith in Geno Smith. He's a number 25 quarterback this week. I do have a little faith in Derek Carr, but not as much as I should because Oakland has been able to get some pass rush. The Giants have been able to get some pass rush lately. So look for that to be a factor because it seems to be that Oakland can't keep the pocket open. Carr's trying to step up into the pocket, and the tackles on the defense or the ends are rushing the linemen back into the pocket, making the pocket collapse from the inside, and that's not a good thing for your quarterback. So look for some decent play from a couple players, but not so much from the receiver standpoint.
Yeah, for this matchup between the Giants and the Raiders, if the Raiders were a better team this year, this would be a great boost for your playoffs. Now, they are 5-6, so they could go 6-6, and the Chargers could go 6-6, and the Chiefs could go 6-6, and that leaves a very interesting AFC West as we move forward outside of Week 13 toward the playoffs because somebody has to take the division. So as far as this game goes, Eli Manning, I know he hasn't had a great turn, but he's the only guy to beat the Patriots. You look at how many teams have beaten the Patriots in recent history and how many teams have beaten them in the Super Bowl. Eli Manning, you gotta feel bad for this. It looks like that's going to be one of these. It looks like for Eli Manning that the Swan song has started to play a little bit in the background and it may get louder. Evan Ingram is the only guy I feel good about, but he's a high-end 2, not a tight end 1 because of the switch over to Geno Smith, who could be the guy that, beats out or ties Nathan Peterman and gets 5 interceptions in this game, if not makes more mistakes. As far as Oakland goes, Derek Carr, not a bad choice because of the game that he's in. Marshawn Lynch, not a bad choice because of the game that he's in. Cordarrelle Patterson, not a bad choice because of the game that he's in. And Amari Cooper depends on how healthy he's going to be moving forward in this game. Really quick note on injuries. Cordarrelle is questionable. Amari's got a concussion and an ankle injury that have left him questionable. And Michael Crabtree is still suspended because he's an idiot. So, and I could say that because he screwed over my team because he decided to get in a fight over it's just stupid. It's absolutely stupid. Millions of dollars and being an idiot. So, Michael Crabtree, Get to know what football is about. Understand you get paid millions of dollars to give up 16 weeks of your life to play games if you don't make the playoffs. So please do better in the future. But this game's going to get ugly for the Giants, I think, real quick. Outside of Evan Ingram, like I said, there's really nobody. Carolina at New, and I'm going to get into the Eli Manning thing later on in the show. Carolina at New Orleans. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an all New Orleans game. New Orleans plays better at home. Drew Brees plays better at home, but there's going to be a lot of fantasy value on both sides of the ball here. Cam Newton, number 6 quarterback this week. Drew Brees, number 7 quarterback this week. You're looking at running backs. Well, I got Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, both 5 and 8 in running back rankings. That's a high ranking for 2 running backs on the same team. And then you know what? Christian McCaffrey's a heck of a player, especially if you're in PPR. So you got value there. He's the number 18 running back this week. And receiver-wise, well, I know Michael Thomas has had trouble scoring some touchdowns, but he's still the number 7 receiver this week. And on the other side of the ball, Devin Funchess is leading the way for Carolina. He's taken over that number 1 role, and he's a low-end wide receiver 1 for you this week. Tight end position, Greg Olsen's still kind of dinged up. Looks like he may have re-injured that foot. He's probably going to be on a very limited snap count. And I don't really have anybody to report on from the New Orleans side because, well, no one's been able to step up and take the place of, well, Jimmy Graham since he's left. So maybe Jimmy Graham's going to come back in free agency next year. But this year, the value in this game is really in the running backs, the quarterbacks, and you got 2 wide receiver plays that are pretty good.
Yeah, as far as Carolina goes, anything injury-wise, Christian McCaffrey's shoulder injury is questionable. Olsen's foot injuries left him questionable and was held out of practice on Thursday. Thumb and shoulder injury to Cam Newton, but you know that he'll pretty much play through anything. He's questionable for the game. As far as the Saints go on their side, Kobe Fleener's concussions left him doubtful, and that's really all injuries on that side. For this game, you know, Cam Newton, not a bad play. Devin Funchess, Christian McCaffrey, if he's good enough to go. All of those guys are pretty good plays, but I lean on the side of the Saints with Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Ted Ginn Jr., Michael Thomas. All of those are worthy of playing. Alvin Kamara more than anybody else, and Mark Ingram behind that, and then Drew Brees, and then we go from there. The Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Thoughts?
Well, playing Gabbert this week against a tough Jacksonville defense, he was able to lead that team to a victory there, and, you know, you can't argue with a win. You know, so Blaine Gabbert's still going to get the nod. I still don't believe in him. He's the number 21 quarterback this week. You know, and when you go on the other side of the ball, Jared Goff made leaps and bounds improvements over last year. He's the number 9 quarterback this week, even against that Arizona defense. The key with the Arizona defense is that number 1 receiver on the other side of the ball is going to be smothered by Patrick Peterson. But other than that, the rest of the defense has given up a lot of passing yards. So the idea is to find where those guys are. Well, you're going to be able to find where some of those guys are by, well, just watching the game. The guy you want to look at, though, in my opinion, is not necessarily a Sammy Watkins, but a Cooper Kupp. This is a guy who demands coverage in the red zone. He gets the most targets in the red zone. So I find him to be the highest value receiver at number 24. Now, I got Sammy Watkins ranked at number 23, but again, he's going to be smothered by Patrick Peterson, so keep your expectations in check. Sammy Watkins has been inconsistent this year as well, so the value at receiver is in Cooper Kupp. Now, on the other side of the ball, well, not so much. Running back is the value here with Todd Gurley, the number 2 running back. You know that, of course. And then watch out for Adrian Peterson to maybe make a resurgence here. He's been inconsistent. He's been kept in check by a lot of teams. But I got him ranked as the number 20 running back this week. And on the tight end front, well, not so much on either side of the ball. Although there has been one guy who's been turning it on recently, and that's Ricky Seals-Jones. So if you're in a pinch at tight end, maybe you're counting on Greg Olsen to come back. Maybe a Ricky Seals-Jones, he might get you 40, 50 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, in this game, and I want to make a quick note here for those of you that are looking forward to the conversation with Enrico Mastriani live here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Marywood Pacers men's basketball head coach with me. We are coming up with that in just a few minutes right after we close out fantasy football here. So for those of you that have joined the show to hear Enrico Mastriani, he is coming up. Los Angeles at Arizona, my thoughts on this game as far as, staying away from injuries and whatnot. I would say Todd Gurley the second. I like him in this one. Cooper Kupp is a high-end wide receiver 3 because of inconsistency. Those are the guys I feel good about. Sammy Watkins as a flex. As far as Arizona goes, I would look at their special teams because I think they might be able to do something with that special teams. Defense and special teams. Ricky Seals-Jones, not a bad play in this game. Larry Fitzgerald's been really quiet, but it's hard to keep him off. He's a high-end wide receiver 3. And if Adrian Peterson's good enough to go, he's worth a look at a running back 3. But I lean more on the side of Los Angeles getting it done offensively than Arizona. But Arizona may try to steal some points in their defense and special teams. Philadelphia at Seattle. Thoughts on this?
Well, it's a great game for some great quarterback play. Russell Wilson, number 2 quarterback this week. Carson Wentz right behind him at number 4 this week. The challenge is going to be finding a solid running back on either side of the ball. Of course, Seattle's had their challenges. Looks like Mike Davis might be back. We talked about D.D. McKissick in a recent past, but Mike Davis may make it back on the field, so those are some low-end flex-type guys you may want to consider. Receiving the ball, Doug Baldwin's a staple as far as Seattle goes. And as far as Philadelphia goes, you got to go with Alshon Jeffrey. He's a borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. And, of course, tight end play is paramount for both of these teams. Zach Ertz, arguably one of the top 3 tight ends week in, week out. And Jimmy Graham just outside of that ranking at number 5.
Yeah, this matchup between the two of them, as far as it goes, I lean on the side of Philadelphia on their 9-game winning streak. They're going to be at Seattle against the 12th man, but Seattle struggled in a lot of things. I don't think they have enough weapons to defeat Philadelphia's scoring on offense. So when I look at this, Carson Wentz in this game, Corey Clement, as well as Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount have all gotten touches. None of them are bad plays for you as a running back 3. Jay Ajayi's a low-end 2 for me. And then outside of that, Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, and Nelson Aguilar, any of those guys. And Nelson might have been dropped, so you could pick him up quickly to give him an opportunity. On the other side of this, outside of looking at a Paul Richardson or Jimmy Graham, who's questionable if he's okay to go, either one could be an option for you. Russell Wilson could be a play because he's going to run the ball and he's going to pass the ball. But I lean on the side of Philadelphia to not only win this game, but potentially get some points on Seattle as well. Maybe some that would shock the hometown crowd. Final game, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. What do you have for this one?
Yeah, this should be all Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's looked good. Looks like they've been able to turn on the light switch as far as the offense. Ben Roethlisberger went from being against the Jaguars and talking about retirement and maybe he doesn't have it anymore now he's the number 8 quarterback this week. On the other side of the ball, I can't say quite as much, but that's strictly because of the Pittsburgh defense and their ability to pressure the quarterback with J.J. Watt's little brother and Ironhead Jr. there. They got an opportunity to really affect what Cincinnati's been trying to do. Now, Cincinnati had a rough start this year offensively, fired a coordinator, and now it looks like they've been able to get some tread. Looks like they've been able to get some things going offensively, but I think that's going to be brought back to reality on Monday night against Pittsburgh. Of course, if you have Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown, those are the number 1 guys in their respective positions. Cincinnati, you can't really say as much, except for A.J. Green, number 9 wide receiver, constantly in the play as the wide receiver 1, week in, week out. He's the staple there. And, of course, Tyler Kroft has been able to turn it on and get things done, but you got to keep your expectations in check there. He's the number 18 tight end this week.
Yeah, in this matchup, and Tyler Kroft with a wrist injury, so just make sure you watch out on that one. With Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, my expectations are on Pittsburgh to get things done. They almost lost to Green Bay recently here, so you'll want to do something on Monday night to prove that you're better than that. Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown, all worth the plays in this game. Martavis Bryant as a low-end wide receiver, too. As far as Cincinnati goes, I don't like any of the running backs. I haven't. I know Joe Mixon had a good week, but he's a running back 3, high end at best for me in this one. A.J. Green is somebody to look at as a low-end wide receiver 2, and those are my quick thoughts on Cincinnati. So with that being said, Week 13 of the NFL, fantasy football-wise, proudly brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Your home for fantasy watching this weekend and every week. Mike, as always, of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Thanks for being a part of the show, buddy.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Dan.
All right, take care. That coming from Mike Sofka, Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com.